Starwind is a TC or total conversion for the open source Morrowind engine, known as OpenMW. Set during the events of Knights of the Old Republic, you play as a lone mercenary who is on the same ship as Bastila and KOTOR's protagonist, leading the players to initially think that this is just some KOTOR in Morrowind format. Playing for any length of time, however, the differences quickly become apparent. You are given a completely unique series of quests through a sandbox version of KOTOR's galaxy, as experienced through Morrowind mechanics. For general Elder Scrolls fans who gravitated towards Skyrim, this mod isn't likely to do anything for them. But if you were big into KOTOR's RPG elements, Morrowind is in full force here. Let's talk about races. All the different races have stat and skill bonuses as impactful as vanilla Morrowind, meaning that if you wanted to play a heavy armor badass who blasts people, then perhaps a Mandalorian is for you. Or perhaps you want to spend all your time summoning droids as your battle minions, then a Coruscanti is more likely your bet. KOTOR and Mereluka are basically the high elves, that is to say, they'll give you a much larger force pool and will gravitate toward neutrality or the dark side. Most of Star Wars' famous races have their own dedicated stat spreads, and with the Starwind Enhanced mod for Starwind, yes, this game has its own mods, you could be playing a Jawa, Ewok, or Gungan for all their unique stat and skill spreads. So on the topic of skills, all the Morrowind skills are present, however they've been reskinned and some of them have had their functions completely changed. All the weapons are different. So spears have been replaced with lightsabers, swords have their own melee skill for vibroblades, blasters, when skilled properly, are far better than archery ever was in Morrowind, and conjuration is now engineering for the building and summoning of droids. Alchemy is now bartending, where you make drinks with equivalent force buffs. And yes, you absolutely can work with spice and death sticks as ingredients. Unarmored is the standard for Jedi Knights or Sith Acolytes, while light armor is tribal and makeshift types of armor. Medium armor are for the Sith and Republic soldiers, the heavy fighters, and then heavy armor itself are for exotic alien armors, including but not limited to Mandalorian armor. Finally, you have magic. Restoration is light side, destruction is dark side, alteration has been labeled as Grey Force, dealing with generic powers, mysticism is psionic, dealing with warping reality, and illusion is now mind trick. For my big playthrough on twitch.tv/Zakaran, I made a Mandalorian custom class focusing on marksmanship, lightsabers, and heavy armor, with a smattering of force powers and bartending for good measure. It was, as I expected, massively overpowered. Once it got going, anyway. Now, unlike the KOTOR or Mereluka, Mandalorians don't get a bonus to their force powers, so I had to take the Chosen One trait for having the character having been raised on Dantooine, near the Jedi Enclave. The star signs of Morrowind are now your planet of origin to give you a special perk where your character is raised. In the Chosen One case, it just adds your intelligence score flatly to your force pool, meaning that you can use the force well, even if your race isn't force inclined. For non-force users, there are tons of alternatives which support their playstyle in interesting ways. You are not railroaded into being a Jedi. In fact, you actually have to earn it for the most part. Now, in the beginning, there's a quick tutorial where they force you to splice a door open. That's Morrowind's lockpicking system reimagined as using security spikes to hack technology. Then, character creation is complete. You'll meet Bastila, who will direct you to an escape pod, and despite this quick meeting, you only see her one more time in the game, as this is not KOTOR, despite being in the same setting. You're deposited on a tiny section of the planet Terrace, which was spared the Sith bombardment from a shield generator. Your job now is to help a lady named Shade rebuild the capital city, and hopefully start taking back the rest of the planet that was so utterly devastated by the Sith. You start off flying to Tatooine to meet with some black market contacts, the first of whom is a corpse, dead out in the desert. Find him and grab his datapad. I'm spoiling this little part because this is where most new players get stuck. The Tatooine frontier town of Sanddriver acts as a perfect sandbox for the player. The Tusken Raiders out in the sands, the criminals in the Rodian district, the Gamorreans in the sewers are all more or less at the right difficulty for a player who has built their character well, but is just starting out. The vendors refresh their money frequently, so it is very possible to farm up a lot of money and buy whatever you want. You will also notice a ship with a Zerka travel route. These are the Silt Striders in the game, and will navigate you between planets. For the main quest, your job on these intro planets are to find 3 drop pods and get the parts. You'll notice that the game has a total of 5 drop pods, so you can pick and choose which of the intro planets you want to visit via the travel routes. 3 drop pods will get you your own ship and you can return to Terrace. At this point, you're given the real main quest, which will require you to visit even more planets. But I'm going to stop here and not spoil the rest of the main quest. I will say, however, that the tour of the galaxy was fun. More importantly, there are dozens of quests on each planet to do, each of their own little mini sandbox to explore, although it's generally best to accept all the quests from every location you come across as soon as you see them, just in case. Just like vanilla Morrowind, it is entirely possible to sell or get rid of an item that you need just because it appears to have no value and then realize that you need it later. Also, understanding that not every side quest can be completed in a single playthrough is important. Much like the great houses of Morrowind, you can become an independent contractor with either the Republic forces or the Sith Empire, but not both. Choosing one or the other will lock you out of entire sets of quests. The embassies for both are based in the capital city of Manon, and getting access to the city proper will require 20 reputation. Completing side quest chains on various planets will give you 1 reputation each. That said, the side quests in planetary sandboxes are indisputably the star of the show when it comes to this game. Unlocking the Starship gives you access to far more of the galaxy than the Zerka travel routes do at the start. Unlike most Morrowind and Skyrim mods of this scale, that are usually taken as progress that may never reach their final form, Starwind is a finished product. That is to say, the primary developer finished work on the game. Once work on the game was finished, at version 3, development was passed off to mod makers. Starwind has a mod called Starwind Enhanced that enhances massive parts of the game, as the title would suggest. I highly recommend it. There are also a myriad of other mods that add things like the Endor expansion pack or new races. So if I had to pick a mod loadout right now for Starwind, I would say get Starwind, Starwind Enhanced, the Natural Growth and Decay OpenMW version that overhauls the leveling system, auto-equip blaster ammo, and improved KOTOR tanks. It's a fun game, even if it has a bit of jank required to make Morrowind into Star Wars. Now, I've heard nonsense uttered like, you should play KOTOR instead of this, which is incredibly stupid, when the real answer is you should play KOTOR and then this. KOTOR is fun, but it isn't the sandbox game that this is most of the time. Even when the whole galaxy opens up, it can never really be an Elder Scrolls / Fallout style game. There is just something unique about how Morrowind plays and lends itself very well to the KOTOR universe. Playing KOTOR first means you'll be able to pick up on all the little references strewn about the galaxy. But KOTOR itself isn't required to play this. Now that I've flatly recommended the game, I'm going to provide a few tips. First, Starwind is Morrowind, and it uses Morrowind's combat. The general perception of Morrowind's combat has been poisoned in the YouTube space by people who make review videos out of Oblivion or Skyrim, saying how much better it is than Morrowind's combat and how much Oblivion and Skyrim have improved their combat. They will do this while simultaneously showing footage of a Morrowind player who is using a weapon they are not skilled in, a short dagger. They will then miss because they are unskilled. They will simultaneously have an empty fatigue bar, which makes them miss even more. The result is they will sit there and spam the button not hitting the enemy and call that Morrowind's combat. Morrowind has a communications problem, not an underlying foundational problem, meaning if you understand the combat, it's actually quite easy. That means those videos misrepresenting the combat have spread this far and wide. It's a pretty good meme, though. Anyway, if you want to use blasters, spec into marksman skill is a major skill. Set agility is one of your primary attributes, as it both increases your chance to hit, but is also the governing skill of marksman. In short, you're double dipping. Consider being a race that gets bonus to marksman. Finally, make sure your fatigue is ideally full when you enter combat, but it's fine as long as it isn't close to empty. You hit 25% more often at full fatigue, you miss 25% lower fatigue. So you can build your character for any skill you want to use and be good at it. Just remember, fatigue influences absolutely everything in the game. It's a pacing mechanism. So if you find that you really can't manage fatigue, download the speed and stamina mod for Morrowind. It should work with Starwind. That was the first hint. The second one, the medical bay in Sand Driver has a call dropship power, which is ALMCV intervention. It can teleport you back to the main town of whatever planet you're on, so you don't have to run back to town, especially if you're overburdened with stuff you want to sell. Third, there's a mercenary NPC in the cantina for characters who have not optimally built their character and or need time for their character to hit their stride. This NPC mercenary will lighten the load significantly. Later, it will be possible to use multiple followers, many of which are force sensitive. You never have to play the game as a solo character, outside of a few scripted sequences in the final act of the main quest. After you get your own ship, you can always send followers back to your ship with a dialogue option. Fourth hint, all data pads are lore books, and all lore books are also skill books. It is in your best interest to read every datapad in the game. Not only do they contain cool world building details, but they'll also increase your skills by 1 point each. Fifth, you will not start the game as a Jedi, but if you built your character with high intelligence, an unseen intelligence check will be done every time you sleep in Sanddriver to see if you have a dream. This will be the crazy guy in the center of town viewing your dreams through the Force. If you go to him afterward, he will have new dialogue that will lead you to getting a low-level lightsaber and low-level force power training, assuming the character creator didn't give you the powers based on your major and minor skills already. This crazy guy's quest will continue on Kashyyyk and becomes the outcast Jedi faction, the people who left the Order in disgust. Sixth, if your goal is to move to more advanced force powers, you're going to either need to do quests for the Jedi or the Outcast Jedi. For the Jedi, do the Missing Persons questline on Dantooine to get access to the Jedi Enclave and the training it provides. For the Outcast Jedi, it starts on Kashyyyk. Seventh, if you want to use the bartending skill and level it up, the guild on Manon is gated behind 20 reputation and will require you to travel around the world a bit doing quests to get the skill unlocks. Because this skill is basically alchemy from Morrowind, bartending can break Starwind, just like alchemy breaks Morrowind. So they kind of gate your access to it until after you've gotten 20 reputation. Eighth, and finally, save often and get ready to make new characters. There are several skill requirements for many of the quests, and dialogue options can permanently lock you out of certain pieces of content. This is by design, as this game was made to be played multiple times with different builds and different choices. I should add that players who played this before the more recent version 3 are in for a wild ride now that the game is quite different from how it used to be. I recommend Starwind and Starwind Enhanced to pretty much everybody who likes Morrowind and simultaneously has nostalgia about pre-Disney Star Wars. It's a good bookend for KOTOR players, and a solid role-playing game that just happens to require Morrowind. I wouldn't call the characters incredibly deep or well-written. Ultimately, the world itself is the main character, as is the way Elder Scrolls works. Thank you all for watching. Check the links on screen for more content. I'll be live streaming on twitch.tv/Zacharon, and I will see you all next time. Run away! No, my saber isn't broken or anything, so these guys are just super high level. I'm just gonna abuse my superior firepower here. I can't wait to count out the credits. I mean, I will get lightsaber increases by doing this. It's just the fuck, you know? There we go. Lightsaber increased to 63. So why are the exchange thugs attacking me?